I know that it's 3 o'clock, but we cannot begin until we have an external member, so we're just waiting for Sana. So I do want to say welcome. for the Halton District School Board. I call this meeting to order. The acknowledgement of the traditional lands, I believe Trustee Rocha, you're going to do that for us today, please?
I am, and I will. Let me just open up my land acknowledgement. Okay. We begin by acknowledging the land and our responsibility to care for and respect all that provides us with life. This land upon which HDSB is situated is on the ancestral, treaty, and title lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Mississauga Nation, now known as the Mississaugas of the Credit. Mississauga territory in the past and present continues to host both Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. The HDSB is committed to continuous knowledge building with respect to actions that address and resolve the ongoing impacts of colonialism. We do this by learning and understanding the true history, treaty obligations, duties, and responsibilities and Indigenous rights, while actively maintaining mutually beneficial relationships and collectively respecting and caring for the land. One thing I'd like to add, seeing as how today is Remembrance Day, this is I don't know if you can see it, but this is a Remembrance Day poppy made with wingashk, and wingashk is the Ojibwe word for sweetgrass. And sweetgrass is a medicine used for purification and represents kindness. And seeing as how today is Remembrance Day, this poppy reminds us that the Indigenous people of Canada also fought in the wars.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Rocha. Very much appreciated. May I call for a motion for the approval of the agenda, please? Thank you, Trustee Bryden. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Sana. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns around the agenda? All in favor of approving the agenda? Any opposed? Thank you. The agenda is approved as written. Are there any declarations of possible conflict of interest? Thank you. Seeing none. May I have a motion, please, to go into private session? Thank you, Robbie. Seconded by Tanya. Any questions, comments, or concerns about going into private session? All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. We are now in private session. We will wait for the in public session. Moving back to our agenda. 2.2, approval of business transacted in the audit committee private session. I don't believe we had any business transacted. So I will move us to presentations, and I don't believe we have any presentations either. So I will move us to agenda item 4, starting with 4.1, the minutes of the audit committee meetings. Be it resolved that the audit committee approved the business transacted in the private session. We did not have any. Sorry, going down. Be it resolved that the minutes from the public session audit committee meeting held on September 30th, 2025 be approved as distributed. May I have a mover for that, please? Tanya? Thank you, Tanya. May I have a seconder? Thank you, Robbie. Any questions, comments, or concerns? All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, that carries. 4.2, recommendations to the board, the 2024-2025 financial statements, and those will be presented to us by Roxana.
Thank you. And through the chair, we had a clean audit opinion for 24-25 financial statements. The consolidated financial statements are included in your package, and later in the agenda also the financial statements for our transportation consortium, which are consolidated on a proration basis in our statements. We ended the year in a 3.6 million surplus, which is a better financial position than what was budgeted. This was mainly as a result of increases in some of the funding that was one time for Bill 124 retro payments, for which the offsetting costs were in the prior year, higher interest revenue, as well as higher programming for continuing education, summer school, and language program. We did see also savings when it came to salary, benefits, and supply costs, which more than offset some increases in expenses for WSIB claims, snow removal, and repairs and maintenance. There were no accounting policy changes through the year. We do have, I'll walk you quickly through just the highlights of our financial statements, which includes first the consolidated statement of financial position, or the balance sheet, which highlights the assets, liabilities, and accumulated surplus of the board. Just overall, we do have a lower balance, a cash balance, and that is mainly as a result of the purchase of the North Oakville Secondary School property, which was occurred in a year. With regards to accounts receivable, we do have also lower balances, both for accounts receivable and accounts receivable from the Government of Ontario. That is as a result of education development charges received in the year. Receivables from the province for legislative grants were lower, as well as there's a decrease in the late grant payments year over year. Looking at deferred revenue, the balance is significantly lower year over year as well, and that is primarily as a result, again, of spending on the purchase for the property for the North Oakville High School, as well as the ending deferred balance for the proceeds of disposition has decreased because these funds were used for approved capital construction through the year. Going into liabilities as well, asset retirement obligations balance change reflects inflation adjustments year over year, as well as any increase in liability due to work, as well as decrease due to abatement activities through the year. I want to move us to the statement of operations, or the income statement, which highlights our revenue and expenses for the year. These are being compared both to budget for the year, which is approved in June before the beginning of the actual fiscal year, as well as to the prior year. So in both cases, some of these differences are the same as to why the balances for 2025 actuals are higher. So they're higher than budget as well as the prior year. There's a result of increasing benchmarks for the salary component, which resulted in the collective agreements being ratified at 3%, which was higher than the assumptions in the budget, and they were ratified after the budget was approved. So that's mainly the reason between the two in terms of the higher core education funding received. And with respect to other provincial grants, they were higher. Two reasons. One, we do receive other provincial grants, which are also called responsive education programs. They are announced through the year, not all at the beginning of the year, so they're captured here in the actual column. But also there were the Bill 124 remedy that I mentioned previously is reflected in there as well for the year. And that, again, was provided during the year and after the budget was approved. In terms of expenses, you will see that offset in terms of increase in expense, both to budget, the increase to the previous year's, the budget for the year as a result of the ratification and collective agreements, which increased both our expenses, and it's offset by that increase in revenue. In terms of the notes to the financial statements, a couple of ones that I wanted to mention. You will see note 12 talks about the land addition, which relates to the purchase of the North Oakville Secondary School. The note 17 is identifying the Ontario School Board Insurance Exchange, or OSB, which the ministry has deferred the requirements to consolidate into each school board's financial results, and instead will be consolidated at the provincial level. Contractual obligations in note 18 reflect the increase for the year due to construction costs for New Oakville Northeast High School. Note 19 shows the partnership in Halton Student Transportation Services, HSTS, and outlines the proportional consolidation into our financial statements. The package to date does, further down under communication items, include the audited financial statements for HSTS for your information as well. And note 23 contains future accounting standards for adoption. And with that, I would pass it on to our external auditors to walk you through the audit report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the committee for having us here today to present to you the results of our audit of HDSC's financial statements. We will be starting with a presentation of our audit results report included on page 48 of your public agenda package, which is the executive summary of our results report. As the committee would have seen, our audit was conducted largely in line with our audit plan, which had been previously presented to you back at the April 2025 meeting. There were no changes compared to the audit plan that was illustrated to you at that time in terms of both the identification of audit risk areas as well as our determination of materiality. So a reminder to the committee that At every single year's financial statements audit, we do perform our audit based on a concept of materiality, which for HDSB is determined as a percentage of total consolidated expenses. We have included that figure here for your information. This number is important from the perspective of both our assessment of overall financial statements presentation, as well as the fairness of the amounts that were included in the financial statements themselves. We also use materiality to help us assess the extent of testing, so how much testing we perform as it relates to each balance that is material in the financial statements itself. So it very much does drive the extent of our audit effort. In terms of the audit risk areas, as I've mentioned, they are consistent with those identified as part of our April audit plan. So there were 6 areas that we had identified at the time. These are not the only audit risks that we identified, as the identification of audit risks really drives what procedures we perform. So the ones that we have identified here are only those items that are most unique to the school board, and also the ones that we wanted to flag specifically for the committee's information because of the nature of the testing that we performed there, and we feel that it would be of more interest to the committee. So I will be asking my audit managers to speak to these areas in brief detail a little bit later on. In terms of the overall conclusion of the audit, we are very happy to be able to report that we will be issuing a clean audit opinion on the financial statements. There are no material misstatements that we identified as part of the audit, and none that are above the trivial threshold, which we have used for the purpose of the audit. Also very happy to report there were none that were below the threshold, which I think is an important part for the committee to note. There are no material misstatements, and also no deficiencies in internal controls. So as part of our audit, we do perform testing of the design and implementation of controls that we consider to be relevant to financial reporting. So as part of that process, we do test whether or not they were properly designed based on a few specific factors that we consider in proper design of controls to mitigate the risks that they're meant to address. And we also do test whether or not they have been properly implemented by management. So as I said, no deficiencies that we've identified and no weaknesses, which is also very good news for the purpose of the committee. In short, we did note a few outstanding items in our audit results report. All of these outstanding items will be completed upon the board's approval of the financial statements. They're really primarily housekeeping in nature. So once the board has approved financial statements, we will work with management to wrap up these remaining items. And with that, I will pass on to Emmy to start with discussing a few of our audit risk areas, and then we'll open up for questions afterwards.
Thank you, Lillian. So yes, these are the 2 significant risks that we identified as part of our audit risk assessment, which are, I think Lillian mentioned earlier, that are all consistent with those that were communicated to the management during the audit planning. So on the left-hand side, we have each of the risks, and on the right-hand side, we have the procedures that we've performed. One thing to note is that the revenue risk, revenue recognition risk, and the management override of control risks. Both of these are required to be a significant risk that we'll look into as a fraud risk. So regardless of it as a large organization, small organization, not a for-profit and not for-profit, we are still required to take the lens that these are significant areas and we need to spend a significant portion of our time looking at these areas. As you can see, these are the 3 major revenue streams and associated assertions, which where we pinpointed the presumed fraud risk in revenue recognition. And happy to report that our procedures did not identify any material misstatement. The next item. Yeah, so the next item is the management override of controls, where we tested a sample of journal entry testing and obtained sufficient evidence to conclude that there were no indication of material misstatements. And I will pass it on to Roger to talk about the rest of the audit risks.
Thank you, Amy. The next what you'll see on the screen, it's school-generated funds and school council funds. We tested 5 schools and performed substantive procedures and internal control assessments at the school level, focusing on areas such as P cards and enrollment. A combination of procedures were performed and carried out effectively to address our audit risks. No misstatements were identified in the other two risks, which are government transfers relating to capital contributions, and the last one, which is employee future benefits.
Thanks, Raja. And just quickly to recap, there is one other risk areas that we identified as part of the audit plan, which is relating to changes to the group audit standards. So in the current year, and it applies for every audit that we perform, there is a new standard that impacts the testing of group audits. So the Halton District School Board financial statements are consolidated financial statements because they do proportionally include their share of the activities of Halton Student Transportation Services. So as a result of that, this is considered to be a group audit. So in any group audit situation, there are specific requirements for the auditor, which includes communications with the auditors of HSTS. So that's the only reason why we wanted to draw it to your attention. There were some changes in the standard this year, which really altered the way that we assessed the extent of procedures that were required to be performed in our communications with their auditors. So we wanted to draw that for the committee's information, but I would say on the whole, no real impact in terms of the financial reporting as a result of the standard. It's more so an audit standard. I'm happy to take questions that you may have for us in the audit results. We won't go through the rest of the report itself. Most of them are fairly straightforward and included for the committee's information.
Thank you very much, all three of you, for such a fulsome report of what's truly important to know. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Robbie.
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple questions in relation to the financial statements. First off, I heard that Bill 124 remedy amounts were captured under the other provincial grants section, and I noted that there was another other line which was up significantly, the other revenues line, as I get back to the right one here. Fees and revenues from other sources was up dramatically from the year before and significantly above budget as well. I was just trying to understand what was captured in that line.
Thank you for the question. The main ones were the education development charges, which were larger than anticipated. There was an increase in tuition fees, rental. I mentioned the interest revenue higher as well, and a higher program for before and after, which meant additional fees collected for that. But the main one is education development charges.
Thank you. And then my other question is, one of the notes speaks to the remaining schedule for the retirement of long-term debt. And my understanding is that this debt is offset by provincial funding, and that as that debt is retired, while our books look better, there's no impact on our operating because there's offsetting funding for that. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll make the motion. Be it resolved that the Audit Committee recommends the audited financial statements of the Halton District School Board for the fiscal year ended August 31st, 2025 be approved by the Board of Trustees. Do I have a mover for that, please? Thank you, Robbie. Seconder, Sana. Thank you, Sana. Sorry, it's a little hard to see. Seconded by Sana. Any comments, questions, concerns? All in favor? Thank you, that passes. I will move us next to the staffing compliance audit.
Thank you. And through the chair, we have been selected by the Minister of Education to perform or to request that our external auditors perform an additional specified procedures audit with respect to confirming the full-time equivalent reported in Appendix H of our Education Finance Information System for 2023-2024 school year for two groups, which is the Education Workers Alliance as well as the principals and vice principals. There is ministry funding to cover these costs, and the additional fee for this compliance audit is $11,000 plus applicable taxes.
Questions, comments, or concerns? Robbie?
Just so I understand, what is being audited?
So this Appendix H is our appendix where we identify the number of staffing, so full-time equivalents on employee for each employee group. It gets reported to the ministry and through the ministry to the insured benefit trusts, which are the provincial trusts. The costs per or the funding per FTE for the benefit trust is based on what is being reported through here. So the ministry selects randomly a number of school boards every year, a number of employee groups, just to make sure that they have an independent opinion that those the reporting of those FTEs is accurate, complete, etc.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Thank you. I'll put the motion on the table. Be it resolved that the Audit Committee recommend that the Board of Trustees approve the appointment of Deloitte LLP to conduct the staffing compliance audit at a fee of $11,000 excluding applicable taxes. May I have a mover for that, please? Thank you, Robbie. May I have a seconder, please? I see you both. Sana, thank you very much. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, that carries. I will now move us to agenda item number 5, communication to the Audit Committee. Item 5.1.1, the supplemental reporting. Superintendent McGoy.
Thank you. And there are, I'm just going to see, there's 3 reports that are attached here. These reports are also going to be presented to the Board of Trustees at the December 2nd meeting. So they're here in draft for your information and just to provide additional details that accompany the financial statements. It's also a requirement for the annual statement of education development charges. It's a requirement that the treasurer presents you with the balance every year and the revenues and expenses out of this. So I just wanted to highlight that we have a closing balance of a deficit of $1.9 million at the end of the year ended August 31st, 2025. We did have a, I'm just going back to the appendix. We started with a balance of a surplus of 35 million, 35.2, and then in year we received 26.5 million in revenue, a million as a result of interest paid on the surplus balance, and then we had expenditures for the site acquisition, mainly refers to the North Oakville High School site. So when we look at everything together, we ended up with a closing balance of 1.9 million for the year. Happy to take any questions before I move forward to the next couple of items on that.
Thank you. Do I have any questions on the 3 reports listed under 5.1.1? Seeing none, I will move us into the next agenda item, which is 5.1.2.
All right, so this is a 24-25 summary of trustee expenses. Again, it is an annual report that treasurer provides to the Board of Trustees, and it highlights, and it's also captured in the trustee expense governance procedure policy. It highlights the expenses for the trustee based on the 2 main categories that are mentioned in the report. Overall, the expenses were just over 55,000 for expenses that were reimbursed to trustees, and then out of the more central account for conferences and professional development, an additional 29,500. The ending balance for the prior term reserve is 111, just over 111,000 as well. The trustee expenses by trustee will be uploaded to the public website by the end of December. Thank you.
Any comments, questions, concerns around the trustee expenses report? Tanya, is that your hand I see?
Yes, it is. So through you, the chair, this is for the last 3 years on this report, we've been carrying a very large reserve balance. And I personally don't see why the balance needs to be so big. So, and you don't have to answer this right now. You might want to think about it, but how much of this balance could we possibly move elsewhere where money is needed? And if so, which account could the money be put towards?
So I would start by saying that it is the it's going to be through the motion of the Board of Trustees to determine what to do with this balance, and if the will of the board is to reduce the balance. I couldn't really tell you what would be an appropriate amount. It all depends on what may be coming down in terms of some opportunities for professional development, training, consultation requirements, etc. Could it go down? In theory, yes. It will be a one-time investment into the system. The trustees could direct that to be towards anything that is for public education in our budget, but just remember it's a one-time. So for example, it wouldn't be if you're saying, well, we want to add one more staff here, we could do it for one year as a contract staff, because there's no continuity of that saving, so it's a one time. But in theory, yes, you could through board motion, and you could direct it towards something for next year, for example, or this year. It has to be for something in year one time.
Any follow-up?
Sorry, if I can follow up. So when you say it's one time, I'm not understanding exactly what one time means. Is that like one time per year this motion could be made, or is it a one-time expense? Or could you elaborate exactly what when you?
Thank you. Yes, and so what I meant is, for example, if trustees decide that this could be reduced by 50,000, and I'm completely just giving an example. It doesn't mean it's appropriate by any means. That 50,000 reduction, this means that the year-end balance for the following year will then go down to 61,000 for the prior term reserve, and 50,000 comes back into the operating budget for the board. Trustees in that year. So trustees could say, why don't we use this to add, maybe provide additional resources, learning resources to the system. So we would make a purchase of something that we're being directed to for that year that is in the amount of that 50,000. The following year, we don't have that 50,000 as a saving or as an additional money, unless there is another motion to further reduce the reserve balance. So that's what I mean about it's one, when the motion is made to reduce the balance by a certain amount in that year, we would have additional funding available for that year to be spent on something. that the board might direct us for. So it could be a purchase of something. It could be a contract staff or portion of a staff for that year only, just to use that balance.
Okay, and then one last follow-up.
Go ahead.
Would you be able to perhaps share with the trustees where the money could possibly go to, so that if I were to write a report for the board, for the trustees to vote on, that there could be a fulsome discussion as to where we could allocate the money where it's most needed?
I think that's an idea, Tanya, and we can take that offline, because any one-time expense could be considered for that. It's just not something that would be ongoing, like an ongoing staff person, but it is definitely something that we could talk about offline, particularly with the budget coming up. Is there a one-time expense that's X amount of dollars could be drawn out to support that, and then a report could be made? Does that satisfy your question?
Yeah, as long as that information could be provided to us, so that, like, I'm willing to write a report as long as I can have a list of ideas as to where the money could be put towards. Does that make sense?
It does. We have a budget session on November 18th. Perhaps we could discuss it further then.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Okay. Seeing none, would you move to the next report, please?
And the last one in this area is the summary of school-generated funds for the year. And the appendices to the report give you a breakdown by category for both revenues and expenses, and by panel, elementary and secondary. The SGF amount for revenues are about 20.8 million, so they're a little bit up year over year, and we're back to that level that was pre-pandemic, so everything is in more of a normal activity. And the same with the disbursements. They are slightly less than the revenues coming in, about 20 million, 20.1. Anything that is left over is being carried over year. So these revenues stay at the school level, and they get to be carried over for future needs.
Thank you. Questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Seeing none, I will move us to 5.1.2, Halton Student Transportation Services 2024-2025 financial statements.
Thank you. And just quickly, this is just for your information. These are the audited financial statements for Halton Student Transportation Services. They do have a clean audit opinion, there's been collaboration with Deloitte as well, as was mentioned previously. We are proportionately consolidating this, about 2/3 we represent of these financial statements, which are reflected in our financial statements. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Robbie.
Thank you. I did notice the pro rata percentage in our notes, and I was wondering if that percentage is based on total enrollment or on bus usage.
It is based on ridership, so bus eligible students for riding the bus.
Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to 5.1.3, the Regional Internal Audit Status Report.
Thank you, through the chair. I just have a verbal update because it's kind of changing by the day. We did put out in September for an auditor position with the funds that we received, which I updated you about, I believe, before. We did receive some additional funding in the GSN this year, but we weren't successful. Our offer wasn't accepted, so we have reposted now, and that is open till the 28th of November. So if you know anyone who might be interested in joining our team, please pass them along to the website.
Thank you very much. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll move to 5.1.4, timelines for financial reporting presentation to the board.
Thank you, and we update these every meeting just to provide updates in terms of reports to the board for both the fiscal year 24-25. So we're coming to an end there as of December the 2nd, when we're going to be presenting them to the board for final approval. And we have 25-26 fiscal year, which we are heading into revised estimates. They will be presented to the board for the meeting in January. So we'll update those when we have the board reports. And we for the next meeting, then we'll add 26-27, but we thought we might want to take off 24-25 before we add the third year.
Thank you for that. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Catherine, are the links working?
Okay. We'll get those links working. Thank you. Alrighty, that does bring us to the agenda, but before I call for a motion to adjourn, if you indulge me, I would just like to say thank you to someone very, very special who is leaving us after this meeting. Sana, you have been an incredible member and a wonderful vice chair to me the last few years, and I want to let you know how very much the work you've done has been appreciated. For anyone who's not aware, Sonia joined the audit committee in 2020, and she's served the last 6 years, and she's brought to the role the highest standard of dedication, professionalism, and ethics. As a certified internal auditor and certified fraud examiner with a wealth of knowledge in internal audit, governance, compliance, and risk management, she has been an absolute resource to this committee, and her experience and her expertise has been so very much appreciated. Sonia, your deep technical knowledge, especially your thoughtful questions and your professional advice, will be greatly missed around the table. And on behalf of the Audit Committee and the Board of Trustees, I'd like to extend our sincere appreciation for dedicating your time and expertise, and we do wish you all the best success professionally and personally. And as a token of appreciation of all your time, commitment, and expertise and everything you've given to this committee, a donation to Cedar Ridge Public School will be made in your honor to honor all the contributions that you have made to the HDSB during your 2 terms on this audit committee. Sonia, thank you so, so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. And if I can just very briefly, just want to thank back to the committee for having me on board for the last 6 years. It just seems it was yesterday when I came and interviewed with Roxana and the editor chair at that time. The director of education at the time. It's been an honor, and I just want to say the professionalism with which this board is run throughout, it's just phenomenal. I started with asking a lot of questions, but over time, my confidence and how this board is operating has just increased. It's been a great experience, and again, thank you so much for the opportunity. I fully trust how this board is set up and how Roxana is running the ship, and is always available to answer any questions and does her thorough research. Again, thank you to the external audit team. They've been phenomenal as well, and as well as the internal audit team, how we've engaged them throughout the years and how responsive they have been. And thank you to our trustees for asking amazing questions, and to our director of education as well for all your support. Last, I just want to thank you again for making that donation. My daughter's right here. She's with me, and I told her this is going to be our school, so you better appreciate it. So thank you so much for making that donation as well.
Thank you so much, Sana, and thank you for ending this meeting on such a high note, knowing that your daughter is there and able to hear about the donation and in your honor. Please let your daughter know how much you will be missed and how much difference you've made to her school system.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have come to the end of our agenda. As the agenda is exhausted, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Our next meeting is in February.